Hello, this is Donna with Sparrowstudios7, bringing to you I Read and I Learn, the commentary on Genesis 22 tonight. Alright, so for verses 1 through 2, my NLT Bible has this note. The greatest test in Abraham's life came after he received the promised child following a long wait. He had grown to love Isaac and had enjoyed his presence for a number of years. 22 verse 1, the note says this. Some time later, Abraham had sent Ishmael away and settled in the land. Now God tested Abraham's faith by telling him to give up Isaac. This pushed the limits of logic and of Abraham's knowledge of God. Would he still obey when God seemed to be working against him and against the covenant? Would he cling to the boy or surrender him to God? We see this question echoed in Exodus 13 verses 11 through 13. Did he believe that God would still keep his word and bless the world through Abraham's offspring? Something to keep in mind. Verse 2. The note says, obedience to God's earlier call in Genesis chapter 12 verses 1 through 3 was rewarded with great blessing. Now Abraham had the opportunity to show even greater obedience. Take your son, Isaac, whom you love so much. By this detailed description of Isaac, God reminded Abraham that the young man was his beloved son, and intensified his awareness of the cost of the sacrifice. It's also noted that later on in the New Testament, Jesus is referred to as God's only son, his most beloved son. I believe that it's at the baptism of John the Baptist, but correct me if I'm wrong, please. At least he says, my son in whom I'm well pleased. The name Moriah is explained by the Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 3:1, as the place of the later Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Go. By wording the command in this way, God helped Abraham to obey by recalling his former call back in chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. This is when God initially sent Abraham out of Ur to go to the land that he had promised him. Chapter 22, verse 3, the commentary says this. Abraham's immediate unquestioning obedience is almost as astounding as the test. Verse 5. We will worship there and then we will come, or we will worship there so that we may come back. Abraham's amazing statement makes us wonder what he was thinking. Abraham knew that God had planned the future of the covenant around Isaac, and God wanted him to sacrifice Isaac. He could not reconcile these things in his mind. He could only do what God commanded him to do, and leave the future to God. We see this noted again in Hebrews 11, verses 17 through 19. For verses 7 through 8, the comment reads, in response to Isaac's question, Abraham again showed his faith in the Lord, saying God will provide, although he was not sure how. This theme is central to the entire narrative. Verses 9 through 19, the comment says this. God's intervention was dramatic and instructive, confirming that he never intended for Isaac to be sacrificed. God later made it clear that child sacrifice was an abomination to him. We see this in Leviticus 18:21, Leviticus 20, verses 1 through 5, Deuteronomy 18:10, 2 Kings chapter 16, verses 2 to 3, Isaiah 57:5, and Jeremiah 32:35. God wanted Abraham to sacrifice his own will and surrender it to God, and when he did, God intervened. This passage sets a pattern for all sacrificial worshippers. Like Abraham, true worshippers of God know that everything belongs to God. It all came from God and must therefore be acknowledged as God's possession. A true worshipper holds nothing back, but obediently gives God what he asks, trusting that God will provide for all his needs, and then discovering through experience that God always does so. Chapter 22, verse 11. The angel of the Lord stopped Abraham just as he was ready to plunge the knife into his son. Verse 12, the comment reads, Now God knew that Abraham would hold nothing back from him, that he did truly fear God. To fear the Lord means to reverence him as sovereign, trust him implicitly, and obey him without protest. The sacrifice that pleases God is a heart broken of self-will surrendered to God. We see this in Psalms 46:8 and in Psalms 51:17. In offering its best to God. You have not withheld, copied in Romans 8:32, which uses the same verb spare as the Greek Old Testament uses here. If God gave us his dearest possession, he would surely provide all things for us. His dearest possession meaning Jesus, his son. Verse 13, the comment says, God provided a ram caught by its horns in a thicket for the sacrifice. God graciously allowed Abraham to substitute an animal sacrifice in place of Isaac. Later, all Israel would offer animals to the Lord, knowing that God's grace had provided the substitution. We see this noted in Exodus 29:10, Leviticus 4:15, Leviticus chapter 16, verses 20 through 22 as well. In the New Testament, God substituted his only Son for all humanity. The perfect sacrifice was made once and for all. We see this in Isaiah 53:6 and verse 10, John 1:29, Hebrews 7 verse 27, and Hebrews 10:1 through 14, and also noted in 1 Peter 3:18. Verse 14, the note reads, As with many patriarchal narratives, the heart of the matter is retained through commemorative naming. Yahweh Jireh, which means the Lord will provide. We see this happening in verse 8. The verse is, God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son. Abraham answered, and they both walked on together. That Abraham used the holy name in this act shows that the patriarchs knew the name Yahweh, which was also used in Exodus chapter 6, verses 2 through 3. But not its full meaning. And then there's a note on Exodus 6, 2 through 3 in my Bible, but you can also go and look it up. The commentary on that. To this day, later Israelites understood this passage as a lesson about their own worship in Jerusalem. Abraham's sacrifice took place on the mountain of the Lord. Yes, Feeny, he did. Later, the location of the temple in Jerusalem, back to 22:2. 3 times a year, the people of Israel brought their best to God as a sacrifice, trusting that he would continue to provide for their needs. So, Yahweh Jireh, I typically use the name Jehovah Jireh, and it literally also means God will provide, or God is the provider. So whichever way you say it, it's a holy name of God. Whether it's Yahweh Jireh or Jehovah Jireh, same thing. 15 through 19, and then I'll do the second video. After the event, God again confirmed his covenant with Abraham. His descendants would be numerous like the stars in the sky, like the sand on the seashore, and like the dust of the earth. And then there are several verses in Genesis proving this from chapter 15 all the way to 32. I'll be back in a moment with some more notes. Thank you.